We all have our favorite games, our favorite genres, and a lot of the time we just stick to what we know. There's no shame in that, but every once in a while it's nice to know what's out there. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 upcoming games with unique mechanics. Starting out with number 10, Kingmakers, and the fully destructible environments we're seeing in that game. So here's one of these games where all I need to hear is the premise. It's a medieval war game, but you got modern day weapons and gear. I'm sold. You don't need to tell me anything else. You have my money already. Have you seen the trailer? I have. You're looking at it now. Just blowing away hundreds of footmen with a machine gun. Yeah, it's a third-person shooter combined with Dynasty Warriors. Simple, brilliant idea for a game. They could have stopped there, but no, the game goes even further by making it so there's fully destructible environments too. Whip out a grenade launcher and blow up the local watering hole. Why not? It looks like a pretty in-depth physics model too. Buildings don't just crumble into dust. They actually break apart and fall over realistically. So you're not just fighting off entire armies single-handedly. You're also a one-man siege engine. I was pretty excited before they said that, but now I'm more excited. Kingmakers is definitely one to look out for. Moving on to number 9, Crimson Desert, letting you fly a dragon. There's just a lot going on in the trailers for this game. It's an open-world action RPG from Pearl Abyss that seems to combine elements of Dragon's Dogma, Breath of the Wild, and a platinum action game to make something wildly ambitious looking. Let's not forget the whole Witcher 3 vibe that they're definitely cashing in on with a lot of this. All of it looks really impressive, and I'm tempted to be skeptical about it because, well, we've been let down before, but it's clearly the real deal. There's a ton of footage out there, and they've been showing the game off pretty extensively in the last few months. There's a lot of stuff about the game I could focus on here because it's got some pretty impressive physics simulation stuff going on in the background, on top of the game's environments looking almost impossibly gorgeous. But the thing that sticks with me the most is that you can ride a dragon. In an already seemingly staggeringly huge open world game that's packed with detail, they give you the ability to fly high into the air and lay waste on the back of a dragon. I have no idea how extensive the mechanic is. Like, is it just something you can do after mounting an enemy dragon, or do you get a dedicated dragon mount, or what? I have no idea, but it's a thing you can do, and it looks spectacular. At number 8, you can switch seamlessly between crewing a ship and on-foot combat in Jump Ship. It's an upcoming co-op FPS that looks pretty impressive in the way it looks. It lets players switch between ship-based gameplay and on-foot action. The ship stuff kind of looks like Sea of Thieves and various other co-op pirate games where you and your crew man a ship, put out fires, board enemy ships, etc. But what makes this game unique is how expansive and apparently seamless it all is. The scale of it is so much bigger than anything in one of those pirate games. You're literally flying around space, entering the atmosphere, traveling to a mission zone, exiting the ship to do whatever it is you've arrived to do. Then you run back to the ship, do it all over again. When someone pilots the ship, other players can man turrets, perform repairs, build parts to assist, and all while your ship is moving around in a gigantic environment. It's not a completely new idea necessarily, but the presentation and scale of it is well beyond anything I've seen before. It looks fantastic too. The trailers show a game that's just got a lot of mechanical depth, but it also seems very intuitive and fun. It doesn't look like a big confusing slog that some of these types of survival co-op games are. What's been shown so far, it's super impressive. I hope the final product manages to live up to these amazing trailers. And number 7 is Climb to Survival in Cairn. There have been a few climbing games recently, but what seems to really make the upcoming Cairn unique is how in-depth the climbing mechanics actually are. It's not just exploration or story with some climbing. The climbing is what this game is about. They're not trying to replicate the look of rock climbing, they're trying to emulate how it feels too. The game doesn't just give you a set pattern of rocks to grab onto or gets by with a simple stamina system. You have to actually find solid holds for your hands and feet, and you can adjust your posture to shift your body weight. There's a ton of management that goes into climbing in this game, and it makes it feel far more involved than other games in this little genre. There's resource management as well. You have to use pittons and make stock holds and chalk to improve your grip, finger tape, so on. And when you're not climbing, you're exploring around the areas that aren't sheer vertical cliffs to find resources. It sounds like there's a lot going on here, and it looks and sounds very intriguing, and maybe a little frustrating, but hopefully in a good way. And number 6 is traveling through time and changing the world in Clockwork Revolution, a game with a really ambitious premise. There's not a lot of actual information on it yet, but the game is so audacious it deserves a look, even though there's almost nothing else to talk about right now. The BioShock-inspired FPS action game looks like it's got all the basics needed for a game like that. It's got retro-futuristic city, a Rapture-adjacent name. In this case, it's called Avalon. You use wacky steampunk guns with special powers. So far, so BioShock. What's going to make this game more than just another copycat is the time travel mechanic. You actually go back in time and make choices that affect the future of the city. So, it's BioShock if it was Sonic CD. The trailer shows off a world that starts off bright and colorful and transforms into a rundown warlike society, replacing the gold in the original version with gunmetal and gray skies. These changes apparently come from the choices you make, so this game appears to be heavily reliant on choice and consequences, which isn't a new idea per se, but you rarely see a game where your choices actually seem like they matter. Hopefully this game pulls off the ideas that it's got and really makes the whole butterfly effect feel like the real deal. If the only two timelines are the ones shown in the trailer, the Clockwork Revolution is gonna be a bit of a disappointment, but hey, we can hope. And number 5 is Intimidating Dinosaurs in the Lost Wild. This survival horror game's visually super impressive, but just from watching the trailer, you'd assume it's just another horror game. You know, you hide from monsters in heavily scripted sequences, craft a few resources to scare them off, basic stuff, not necessarily bad, not necessarily innovative. The Lost Wild sounds like it's going to be a little more interesting than that, though. Rather than just populating the game with mindless monsters that only ever try to kill you, the developers behind this game put a strong emphasis on the fact that the dinosaurs you're dealing with aren't just mindless warriors, they're animals with complex AI patterns, so they don't always act how you'd expect in a horror game. So evade predators when you can, but it's possible to startle and even scare them away if you catch them off guard, or use other animals to distract them. Each dino has its own behavior, so careful observation will allow you to better avoid them. It all sounds like a slightly more complex and unpredictable horror experience than what you would normally see in games like this, and if the AI is actually as reactive and realistic as they claim, The Lost Wild could really be something special. And number 4 is building custom airships in Lost Skies. There are a lot of open world survival crafting games, but this one looks to be the most interesting. There's a lot of pretty fun looking mechanics going on here with gliding and grappling and climbing and shooting, but the thing that stands out the most, at least to me, is that you can create your own custom airships and control them in aerial battles. Sort of like Sea of Thieves if your ship could fly and you could build it yourself, which is just such a cool and satisfying idea that, again, it hasn't really been done before. The whole build a mobile base mechanic, that's not new, but it looks so clean and intuitively implemented here. The core of the game is exactly what you expect with base building and rock punching, but also you got machine guns to get in shootouts with robots. It's a fascinating setting. It looks like a place that's just fun to be in. I've got pretty high expectations for Lost Skies, and with so many survival games clogging up the market, new games in the genre all tend to blend together, so when one stands out this much, it's worth paying attention to. And number 3, creating alternate versions of yourself in The Alters, which, clever name, right? No, it's a cool looking game. This narrative-driven survival game combines elements of a lot of different genres. There's third-person exploration, there's survival, there's XCOM-style base management, and then there's a marquee feature, the ability to make alternate versions of your main character to staff your base with who have their own needs that have to be fulfilled. So it's a little bit Sims, a little bit No Man's Sky, maybe some Frostpunk, possibly. It's a wild mix, made even weirder by the whole cloning mechanic, where each new clone is essentially an alternate reality version of your guy who made different life choices leading up to this moment. I mentioned Frostpunk because it sounds like you have to make some hard decisions as the alters try to coexist with each other. There's a strong focus on narrative here, so the amount you can actually change things depending on choices that's up in the air. I'm not sure how much mechanical depth there is to all this, but either way, it looks interesting, even if I don't necessarily understand exactly what the gameplay loop is. How does the third-person exploring factor figure into the base management? Will the alters end up feeling like an afterthought with everything else going on? I don't know, but I'm hoping for the best because it all sounds super interesting. And number 2, creating your own species in Adapt. Anybody remember Spore, that impossibly ambitious life simulator from Maxis? The guys behind The Sims? The final product was kind of a shallow disappointment, but there was one part everybody liked, and that was the creature stage, the part where you create and control a new species. Adapt is that, but expanded into an entire game. Yeah, I know what you're saying. How can I call it unique if they're ripping off a popular games mechanic practically wholesale? Well, you see anyone else doing it? Spore came out in 2008. I think it's high time for somebody else to get a try at that whole thing, because it is an awesome idea, and being freed from the rest of Spore allows these developers to really make a meal out of this mode. Like, look at it. The creature mode is here. It's just a lot more options and stuff is going on. You can create weird little freaks and directly control them as they start off as some weak little bottom feeder, and then they evolve into an apex predator, or not, you know, depending on what you want to happen. The graphics, not mind-blowing, but the central concept's fantastic. Like, it's super nice to see someone do something with this idea that's been left utterly unexplored for years now. And finally, at number 1, in SCREENBOUND, you're gonna play a game while you're playing the game. This one hurts my brain just a little bit. So the idea here is you're playing a game on a little Game Boy while also moving around in a 3D world. It's strange enough, but the crazy thing is the game you're controlling is like the world you're walking around in. They're one and the same. Your movements in the 3D world dictate how you move in the 2D one, and vice versa. So what happens in one game happens in the other. I mean, at least you can zoom in and put down the Game Boy thing, which is called the Quantum Boy in the game, to get a better look at your surroundings. I'll say that. That's nice. They call this a dual dimensional space, aka 5D, which is a combination of 3D and 2D. And yeah, I'm scratching my head. I think that's kind of a weird one. I'm not so sure that I would consider it 5D. In this day and age where it feels like every idea's already been done in games, something like this comes along and redefines what's possible. Not to say the concept of 2 games at once is, you know, itself entirely new, but the idea of simultaneous 2D and 3D movement in the way that they're doing it here, I have not seen something that this even reminds me of, to be completely honest. And if I'm wrong, then, you know, whatever. This game looks pretty damn interesting. I'm not sure if it's going to be any actual fun to play, but damn if it's not unique. And that's all for today. Leave us a comment, let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter and book me on Cameo at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on GameRanx.